Ethan Miller was born into a family that never truly became his. When he was 2 years old, his parents divorced. Not with shouting, not with drama that a child could remember, but with quiet indifference. Each of them remarried soon after, starting new lives, new families, and new priorities. Ethan was left behind, passed between conversations, treated more like an inconvenience than a son. The only person who stayed was his grandmother. She lived in a small, aging house, but to Ethan it was the safest place in the world. She woke him every morning, made him simple breakfasts, and held his hand when he felt scared or lonely. She told him stories at night, stories about kindness, about endurance, about how even forgotten people could still matter. For 6 years, she was his entire world. Then, when Ethan was 8 years old, she passed away quietly in a hospital room. No parents rushed to his side. No relatives cried loudly. The room felt empty long before he understood why. After her funeral, Ethan returned to the house alone. The silence was different now. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. From that day on, Ethan learned to survive by himself. He learned how to cook rice without burning it, how to wash clothes in cold water, how to count coins carefully before buying food. He learned how to come home from school and do homework without anyone asking how his day went. At school, teachers saw a quiet boy. Classmates saw someone forgettable. No one noticed that he stopped talking about his future. By the time Ethan turned 12, he had already accepted something most adults struggle with their whole lives, that he was alone. He didn't know yet that fate was preparing to test that belief. The night of 3 strangers. The rain had started in the afternoon. At first, it was light, barely enough to notice. By evening, it had turned heavy, relentless, pounding against the broken streets like it was trying to wash the city clean. Ethan Miller walked home alone. His school bag felt heavier than usual, not because of books, but because of everything else it carried. Hunger, fatigue, the quiet disappointment of another ordinary day. He had stayed late to clean a classroom for a few extra coins. It wasn't an official job, just something the janitor let him do when no one was looking. Ethan didn't mind. Money was money. The streetlights flickered as he walked. Water soaked through his worn shoes, each step making a faint squelching sound. His jacket was too thin for this weather, but he pulled it tighter anyway. He was thinking about dinner. There wasn't much left at home. Maybe rice. Maybe nothing. As he passed a narrow alley near the market district, something felt wrong. Ethan slowed. The alley was usually empty, filled only with trash bags and broken crates. But tonight, something darker lay near the far wall, half hidden by the rain and shadows. At first, he thought it was garbage. Then it moved. Ethan stopped breathing. He took one cautious step closer. Then another. A pale hand slipped from beneath a piece of wet cardboard. Ethan's heart slammed violently against his chest. He wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at him to turn away, to find an adult, to pretend he had never seen anything at all. But his feet wouldn't move. He crouched slowly, rain dripping from his hair into his eyes. 3 girls lay there. They were older than him, around 15, maybe 16. Their clothes were torn and dirty, their hair tangled and soaked. Bruises marked their arms. Their faces were pale, too pale. They weren't dead, but they were close. Ethan shook. He reached out hesitantly, placing 2 fingers near one girl's neck. A pulse. Weak, but there. Relief hit him so hard his knees nearly gave out. What do I do?" he whispered. There was no answer. Rainwater pooled around them, soaking through the cardboard. If he left them here, they would die. Ethan knew that. He was 12 years old. He had no phone, no money for a hospital, no adult to rely on. But he had a house, and he had 2 arms. Ethan made his choice. It took everything he had. He dragged the first girl out of the alley, grunting with effort, slipping on wet pavement. She was heavier than she looked. He rested every few steps, apologizing under his breath, as if she could hear him. The second girl stirred slightly, letting out a weak sound that made Ethan panic. "Please don't wake up," he whispered, not knowing why. The third was the hardest. Rain blurred his vision. His arms burned, but he didn't stop. By the time he reached his house, Ethan's entire body was shaking. He kicked the door open, dragged them inside one by one, and locked it behind him. The house felt impossibly small now. He laid them on blankets, hands trembling as he searched through old drawers for dry clothes. He remembered things his grandmother used to do, checking foreheads, wrapping towels, whispering reassurance. So he did the same. He heated water. He wiped their faces. He prayed. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, watching their chests rise and fall. Every sound made him flinch. Every cough made his heart stop. Sophia was the first awake. She gasped sharply, eyes flying open, panic flashing across her face. Ethan raised his hands immediately. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe." She stared at him like he was a stranger. Because he was. The second girl woke next, Serafina. She tried to sit up and cried out in pain, eyes burning with fear and anger. "Don't touch me," she snapped weakly. Ethan backed away instantly. "I won't," he promised. The third girl, Chisindra, woke last. She didn't panic. She simply looked around, silent and observant, her gaze sharp despite her condition. None of them remembered anything. Not their names. Not how they ended up there. Not even each other. When Ethan asked gentle questions, their faces remained blank. Fear settled in. Sophia cried quietly. Serafina grew defensive, asking where they were and who he was. Chisindra said nothing, but her eyes never left him. Ethan explained everything. That he had found them. That this was his house. That he didn't know who they were, but he wouldn't hurt them. Silence followed. Then Sophia spoke. "Can we stay?" The question shattered something inside Ethan. He nodded immediately. "Yes," he said. "You can stay. No conditions. No expectations. Just a promise." That night, despite fear and uncertainty, the four of them shared a single room. Rain continued to fall outside. But inside the house, for lives had quietly collided, and none of them would ever be the same again. The first few days after the girls woke up were filled with confusion. They sat quietly in Ethan's small living room, wrapped in old blankets, their eyes constantly moving as if trying to recognize something, anything. But no matter how hard they tried, nothing came back. No names, no faces, no memories of where they had come from or how they had ended up in that dark alley. Ethan noticed it immediately. The fear wasn't loud. It was silent, heavy, the kind that settled deep in the chest and made it hard to breathe. So he didn't ask questions. Instead, he made rice. He placed the bowls on the low table and spoke gently, as if raising his voice might scare them away. He told them they were safe, that this house was small and old and not very comfortable, but it was warm, and that they could stay, as long as they needed. At first, they didn't believe him. Sophia was the first to relax. She watched Ethan closely while he cooked, noticing how careful he was with every movement, how he always turned back to check if they were eating properly. When he asked if the food was okay, she nodded quickly, smiling in a way that felt fragile, as if it might break if questioned. Serafina was different. She was restless, always standing, always tense. Her eyes flicked toward the door every few minutes, as if expecting someone to come and drag her away. When Ethan moved too suddenly, she flinched. When he got too close, her body tensed. Chisindra spoke the least. She sat near the wall, knees pulled close, watching everything with quiet intensity. She didn't ask questions. She didn't complain. But she didn't sleep much either. Ethan noticed her eyes open in the dark whenever he passed by. That night, none of them slept properly. Ethan lay awake on the floor, listening, for different breathing rhythms, for people under one roof. For the first time since his grandmother died, the house wasn't empty. The next morning, Ethan woke early. He packed his school bag, then hesitated, leaving. Felt wrong, so he wrote a note. It wasn't fancy, just a few words written carefully. "I'll be back after school. Please don't be scared." He placed it on the table next to the rice cooker. Then he left. At school, Ethan couldn't focus. His eyes kept drifting to the clock. His chest felt tight, like something important had been left unattended. When the final bell rang, he ran all the way home. The door was still closed. Nothing was broken. Inside, the girls were exactly where he had left them. Sophia smiled when she saw him. Serafina relaxed slightly. Chasendra's eyes softened just a little. That was when Ethan understood something. They had waited. That evening, Ethan suggested they choose names. He explained gently that it might help, that having something to call each other could make things feel less frightening. Sophia chose first. She said the name felt warm. Serafina chose hers with a sharp tone, as if daring the world to challenge her. Chisendra took a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but firm. From that moment on, they weren't strangers anymore. They were people. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Life settled into a strange but steady rhythm. Ethan woke up early every morning to make breakfast. Sometimes it was just rice and eggs. Sometimes it was soup. He packed lunches before school and left them in the fridge with small notes, reminding them to eat. After school, he rushed home. He cleaned. He cooked. He listened. Sophia liked to sit near him while he worked, asking simple questions about ordinary things. She laughed easily, but only when she felt safe. Serafina grew protective. If someone raised their voice near the house, she moved closer to Ethan without realizing it. She argued with him often, but she always stood between him and danger. Chisendra observed. She learned the house layout quickly. She noticed patterns. She learned when Ethan left, when he returned, and how tired he looked at night. Money became a problem. Ethan noticed food running out faster. Utilities cost more. School expenses piled up, but he didn't tell them. Instead, he took his first part-time job. He didn't announce it. He simply came home later. Sophia noticed first. She asked why he smelled like detergent and grease. Ethan smiled and said it was nothing. Serafina didn't like it. She said he looked exhausted. Chisendra said nothing. But that night, she waited until Ethan fell asleep, then quietly placed a blanket over him. Winter came. The house grew colder. Ethan wore thinner clothes. The girls were his old sweaters. When one of them got sick, Ethan stayed home from school. When all three caught a fever, he didn't sleep for 2 days. Cold towels, medicine, soft words spoken in the dark. At some point, without anyone realizing when, the house stopped feeling like a shelter. It became a home. Ethan never called them burdens, never treated them like responsibilities. He called them family, and without knowing it, he became theirs.